I wanna ask you. We talked about 2022. What about 2024? You think Trump is going to run? Do you think DeSantis is going to run?
So today, I believe that Donald Trump is running for president. I have talked to him a few times. He has not tipped his hand, but everything that he says and how he says it and what he cares about, like, he's in. Could it change? Absolutely. But I do think if Trump runs, no one of significant runs against him. It's just, I mean, and if they want to, they can, but he will crush them. If you look at the system, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, by the time they get to Super Tuesday, it'll be over. But if he doesn't run, I keep hearing people say he should play like this elder state. That's not Trump. He's not the elder statesman. That's not the role he wants to play. He wants to be in charge and get things done or not in. And I think he's going to do it.
He needs to be the guy who grabs the other person's microphone and goes, excuse me, no, listen, as opposed to the waiting to be respectful.
Right.
That's what people like about him
he's
taking
not,
charge.
and so there's not. I don't see a role where he says, "Hey, let me be the behind the scenes guy." That's not who Trump is.
Yeah.
Well, what about DeSantis?
I think if Trump doesn't run, there's no question in my mind DeSantis is the immediate front runner. He's sort of the next version of Trump.
He's younger. I think he's better with the media.
He's better with the media.
I think he's handled a lot of cultural issues very, very well. We'll have to see his policy positions. I think, one of the things that really sold me on just being like, I'm going to vote for Trump. School choice was big. I really am a big fan of that. Ending the war in Afghanistan was big. Of course, Biden kind of ruined all that. But I would honestly, just right now, based off a very preliminary view, I'd prefer DeSantis over Trump. Mm-hmm. I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I'm not a fan of the character. I understand why people are. But I will say, I suppose, if it is Trump, I'd probably vote for him again.
Well, look, I mean, here's the reality. I mean, just from a political sense, if he runs, he's the nominee.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
Maybe. I think DeSantis is going to give him a fair running because...
First of all, DeSantis, but I don't think, DeSantis runs against him. Number one. Number two, again, if you look at the early states, and again, part of this comes down to how the game is played in terms of how do you accumulate the 1,500 plus delegates needed to be the nominee. And right now, the system and the grassroots and everything favors Trump. So if he runs, he is the nominee.
I agree.
And if he doesn't run, I think DeSantis is the presumed front runner. There's some others. Things happen. Barack Obama, he was a state senator 4 years out. Trump was still on TV. I mean, there's enough time that somebody can emerge. But I would say, looking at the field today, DeSantis is the presumed front runner if Trump doesn't run.
Who would you prefer? Probably Trump, I'd imagine.
I think, look, from a selfish standpoint, Trump, but I actually like DeSantis. I like how he's governed. I like how he pushes back on the media. I like how one of the things that I thought was so great is during COVID when he was getting all the flack at the beginning for how he's handling it, he stuck to his guns. He said this is the right thing to do, and he didn't bow to public pressure and polls. And I like that. I'm so tired of watching someone pick their finger in the air and saying, hey, what's the right decision? I think DeSantis has core values that I may not agree with every time, but I know he actually believes them and he means it and he'll fight for them.
What if it's Trump DeSantis?
Well, I can't imagine a scenario where DeSantis agrees to be the VP.
Yeah. He's on track to be president.
Right. And he also, two guys that are chief executives like that you don't want to play second fiddle. Trump is always going to be the alpha dog. And so he needs somebody who plays that role well.
And after 2028, DeSantis very well could come in. We'll see. I mean, that's the end of the fourth turning. But again,
if you think about it, every time that you try to game the system politically speaking and say, okay, well, in 5 years I'll be there, it doesn't work. I mean, you either run when you think you should run or you don't. But I just don't see a way that you could overcome Trump's political advantages in the system.
People are saying Ron Paul 2024 in the comment section, and a lot of people are saying Brandon 2024 in the comment section.
I think Brandon would be a good running mate.
Yes. Trump Brandon. But it's literally not a person. It's just the sentiment people are voting for. Mm-hmm. I agree with it.
Makes sense,
just on that alone, I'll vote for it. If people know the meme.
Well, if you don't, I think most of the people who listen to this do get it.
Oh, definitely.
But
Luke's got a shirt.
Yeah, I do get a kick out of the fact. I mean, that goes back to the point that we were talking about the media. I always think it's funny when you expose the stuff. The idea that reporter stood there. And I mean, I was just like, it didn't rhyme. It's not like Biden rhymes with Brandon. I mean, how do you come up with that? But it just shows you how complicit these guys are, that no matter what they said, they were just like, well, they're congratulating you, Brandon.
When I went on your show, it was actually really funny because when you played the clip, you hear beep Joe Biden, beep, Joe. So it's like the bleeps.
Right.
And then it was just funny trying to hear it, and you guys are bleeping it, and it was so obvious that the bleeps are every like second, and this lady's like, "Let's go, Brandon." It was great. It was great.
But, I mean, again, that goes back to
meme.
my it's raining outside, and yet you're being told it's sunny. It's like, how do you possibly get "Let's go, Brandon" out of F Joe Biden? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know if there's some kind of Latin etymology. You go back in time, you're like, well, if you decline the verb.
Do you have that's the flag you need, Luke? Let's go, Brandon.
I already ordered one. It's on its way, and I already had a T-shirt, and it's the best seller on the store right now.
Really?
Yep. The Let's Go Brandon shirt. But ours is a little bit more explicit because it says "Let's Go Brandon" in big words, but it has
the alternate definition.
It has the alternate definition as its shade, as its shadow. So
I will say, as a segue off of this, the two things that are fascinating in politics to me right now, just in terms of someone who's been studying this for a long time, are one, when you look at these Trump rallies, you got a guy who's not running for office on like Saturday nights, jam-packing the Alabama one, 35, 40,000 people. I don't know what the attendance was in Iowa or Georgia, but tens of thousands of people who are spending their Saturday night going out and seeing a guy that's not running for office. That's number one. On the exact opposite, I'm watching these football games, rallies, et cetera, where people are yelling, F Joe Biden.
Yep.
I mean, I've never seen either reaction in modern history where you've got a group of people going out to support a non-candidate, in this case Trump, because they believe in him and the movement, and people at like public events yelling this
political things
in a huge stadium. And it's not like, how sometimes you can hear a faint chant. I mean, this is something that's like overtaking the entire football stadium.
I got this image on Instagram. I tagged it, "Let's go, Brandon." And the reason I did is because we all know what it means. I went to a restaurant this past weekend, and there were two signs in the window. The first says, "Dear valued customer, due to COVID-19, our food suppliers have sharply increased the price of our food. Regrettably, we are forced to raise our prices for the first time in 7 years. Thank you for your patience and understanding as we face these difficult times." And the sign next to it says, "Now hiring." The funny thing is they put COVID-19 in red letters on their sign, and I'm like, it should read "Thanks to Joe Biden."
Right.
And both signs should say, "Thanks to Joe Biden." These are his policies. We're in his presidency. It is Buttigieg. It is his appointees. This is one of the reasons Let's Go Brandon is at public sporting events. I put "Let's Go Brandon" on this. I put it on Twitter. Got over 1,000 retweets. People understand the problems.
Yes.
Maybe not everybody, but enough people are seeing this and they're recognizing. So I think "Let's Go Brandon" is the perfect phrase for these times because it allows you to convey an idea wrapped in, kind of a little nice, friendly package.
Yeah, and it's clean.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a very dirty phrase. "Let's go, Brandon."
It's like a real life meme. But everyone knows exactly what you're saying. And
You know what I
there's a
feel
culture
bad
to
for,
it.
though, by the way? And I don't know if I should feel bad, but it's like people who are named Karen, they're 30 years old. And I'm like, you wake up one day and you're like, how did I become a bad person? And now you're like, there's a bunch of dudes named Brandon that are walking around like, hey.
Life is good.
Yeah.
"Let's go, Brandon."
No, Sean, I'm dying to ask you a question. I hope that's okay.
Thanks for coming by tonight.
Catch you later.
Now, as we know, press secretaries kind of sell stuff.
Yeah.
What was something that the administration came to you with trying to sell that you were like, oh my God, no? Is there anything that was like, oh crap, do I have to do this? I know there's some
there's
people.
a couple handbags at Ivanka. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I know there's
Can
some
you
people
just
talking
squeeze
about
in these handbags to one of your answers?
There's some people talking about inauguration. There's some people talking about the Syria strike, about those comments that you made before.
Well, I mean, there were things that we sold. I remember early on, like the travel ban. I think how we sold that was horrible. I mean, in terms of like, we didn't have our act together. We didn't have the full list of countries and the method. So there were things that we tried to sell that, frankly, I just don't think we did well because we were new and we didn't have all of our ducks lined up in a row. But there wasn't anything that was like, oh my God, I can't do this. It was more like, if we're going to do it, we've got to have everything lined up, ready to go. And that happened more often than not. I think one of the things that I was proud to have started and then I left is that after we kind of blew healthcare, I said, okay, we're now. I mean, I remember one day walking into the Roosevelt Room, Tom Price, Secretary of Health and Human Services at the time. I looked at him and said, okay, where are the groups on us? Like, they're getting ready to do all this repeal Obamacare, and he's like, well, which groups? And I'm like, I don't know, the AMA, the doctors. He's like, yeah, no one's with us. And I was like, okay, this is a problem. So when we knew that tax reform was coming up next in the queue, I literally was like, we're having a meeting every day. We're sitting down. We're lining up our top folks, and we're gonna do this right.
Yeah.
But out of the gate, look, it was exciting and different, and new, but we definitely made a fair share of it.
Because I could imagine it's definitely not an easy job. And for me personally, I'd be like, okay, I got to sell this. And it'll be interesting, to understand the kind of psychology of what happens behind the scenes. Because I feel personally, I'd be like, oh man, I don't want to sell this.
Everybody, you should. Well, first of all, this goes back to what we said a moment ago. Tim was bringing this up. I mean, you're a spokesperson, so I mean, no one's sitting there saying, "Hey, before you go out, do you agree with this?" This is your job. It's your analogy about being a sales rep. It's maybe there's some products that you don't want to necessarily.
That's what I'm kind of asking for.
That's not, I've had to say things over the course of all the people that I've represented that I don't necessarily agree with, but you either quit at some point or you suck it up.
Here's one of the things I was bringing up earlier. I'll mention this passively. One of the famous instances that you were criticized for was Trump's inauguration crowd.
I've heard that.
The claims versus the largest audience ever. You can sit here and say, oh, yeah, there are definitely things I didn't agree with, and try and give at least a more honest view of what the job was like, and then the media is going to run, Sean Spicer admits to being a liar.
Right.
They'll never go after Psaki that way.
No. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, look, I've said this from the beginning. It was a 3-day weekend. We wake up after the president takes this historic, gets inaugurated, this historic comeback campaign and wins, and we wake up and this is what they're talking about. And so we're trying to cobble together basically a case that says, this is stupid. Who cares? How many, think about what we're doing right now. Live streaming a show with tens of thousands of people, right? That didn't exist when Obama was president. So I was like, okay, we've got people that were live streaming things on Twitter and people that were, and so.
That's the context they won't include.
Right. So my point was, how do I basically make the case that this is a silly argument? And a lot of people did. They were excited about President Trump. I know from my own family that there were security issues getting to the mall because of increased issues and routes and all this stuff. And so I'm trying to make the case, and everyone's like, nope.
But this is a very important thing people need to understand in any election. D.C., overwhelmingly Democrat.
Yeah.
Democrat wins.
94
People walk out their front door and they're standing there.
Correct.
Rural areas vote for our president. They're not flying 2,000 miles to make it to D.C. Some did. When it comes to voting, for instance, and I'll say this passively, I don't want to derail the conversation, but with mail-in voting, why is it so powerful for Democrats? Because they have one apartment complex with 1,000 voters in it. They can knock on all those doors in a day. A conservative has to go to rural areas and drive miles between houses in some instances.
But also, or they go to a union hall where everybody's there, say, fill it out right now. Mm-hmm. That doesn't it's just not the same. And it's so.
So when I saw this, I remember seeing the story, and I didn't care about it. You know why? I'm like, oh, did he mean live streaming or something? I'm not going to get into an argument about a spokesperson upselling the president, even if it wasn't the case.
Yeah. Well, and
same thing with Psaki. I want to make sure this is clear, because now I'm going to get all the leftists being like, oh, he's just shilling. No, I said the same thing of Psaki. I don't blame Psaki for not getting asked by journalists.
But I will just say this, just to be clear. I think we could have done a better job. And just so everyone understands, the president, I get back from the briefing room, the phone rings, the White House operator's like, the president's on the phone, and he said some things that cannot be repeated. He wasn't happy. He's like, what were you doing? And I thought, okay, hey, you want me to go out and explain to people that this is ridiculous? That's not what he wanted. He was pissed.
That's what I wanted. That's what I was really interested in. And I do have to admit, the way that they treated you and the way that they're treating Psaki, night and day, total difference. And it's just absolutely crazy to see, how the questions they asked you and the questions they ask her. It's crazy.
One of my favorite memes is "Stop making me defend Trump." Mm-hmm. There's this comedian who did a video where he's in the workplace and there's two guys saying something ridiculous about Trump, and he hears it and he goes, "Guys, that's not true. Trump didn't do that." And they go, "What are you, far right?" And he's like, no, he said something that wasn't true. And so he's like, every time he defends Trump, like, why are you defending Trump? And he's like, because you're wrong.
So there's Cheryl Atkinson came on my show, I don't know, 6 months ago or something. She mentioned this book that had come out. There's a professor at the University of Houston. He's a journalism professor. And he makes clear, first thing he says in the book is, I voted for and supported Bernie Sanders. So by no means do I support Donald Trump in any way. But he goes through every single one of the media narratives that Trump is accused of. This good people on both sides, this, that, all those things that Trump has supposedly said that whatever. And he says, here's exactly the transcript of what he says. Here's the context in which he said it. So there was, and here are all the, and it's like this guy literally breaks down every one of these things and makes it clear. I don't like him, but it's what you're saying, Tim, where they're like, he's like, I just want to be clear what the truth is about what he did say, not what CNN's headline was. Right. And it's just amazing. I didn't realize some of this stuff. There are things that Trump said that I just assumed, okay, I assumed that he didn't really mean that or whatever. But then you go back and you read it and you go, he actually didn't say what the CNNs and the Washington Post of the world
the very
said.
fine people hoax.
Right.
It's amazing how you can have him say they should be condemned totally, completely omitted from the record.
Any of the transcript.
Right.
But I loved the fact of actually stopping and saying, like, and not to make it personal, but there were so many of these things that happened to me. There's one that became really famous where it's like Spicer hides in the bushes. There's no bushes to hide in. I mean, like, I don't mean to be a jerk. And so I'm arguing with the Washington Post editor the day after that story comes out, right? And he goes, okay, all right, we're going to say that you were near bushes. And I'm like, I have a picture. This is on everything that happened was on camera. I finished a TV hit and I walked over to where the media was. There's a row of hedges that you have to walk by. Like, there's no, whatever. Like, and so the Washington Post is like, all right, we'll change it to you were near bushes. What does that have to do with anything except for an attempt to try to undermine and demean the president?
It's the game they play. I once had a story written about me that was actually meant to be favorable. And I get a call from a fact checker. It was the New Yorker that did this. And it was this crazy story about me and my buddy, hackers and journalism. And so the fact checker goes, so it says here in the story that you live in a closet. And I said, no, I don't live in a closet. He goes,
so you're denying it.
But no. Hold on. It's like a closet, right? And I was like, no, it's a full bedroom with a window. Yeah. But like you have to go through someone's apartment, like someone's room to get into it. And I said, have you ever lived in New York? New York has something called railroad apartments. Have you ever seen those? Where you have a living room, bedroom. They're connected because of the way the buildings were built. And I said, this one isn't technically a railroad. When you walk in the living room, there is a room, but there's another room attached to it separate. And he goes, right, like a closet. And I went, right, like a closet. And then they wrote, Tim Pool sleeps in a closet.
So annoying.
But it's again, how do we want it? They pick a narrative.
My friend made spaghetti with white sauce. He took like Alfredo and olive oil with rosemary and garlic and whipped it up.
Yummy.
And the journalist is like, so you're eating sauceless spaghetti noodles? And he goes, well, I made a white sauce. I'm Italian. And they're like, yeah, but like not marinara, like not like a red sauce. And he's like, yeah, but I made like an Alfredo, like a white sauce. I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean, but like not tomato sauce. And he goes, right, no sauce. Would you just give up at that point because you know they're going to justify writing
you're right,
garbage.
I suck. I mean,
right. It's like, but and then they ended up writing this ridiculous story about us. But the funny thing is, a guy from GQ saw it, believed it, and was like, I want to do a feature profile on this, and then showed up and was like, none of it was true.
Huh.
I'm like, yes, here's my bedroom with my window and my bed.
It's amazing, though, but once they write one thing like that, then it justifies every other reporter from using that as a fact as if it's gospel, right? Because, well, it was written once before, therefore it must be. And that's the problem. And I mentioned this before, but there are literally 2 chapters in the book that go through the media and how complicit they are and what they do to cover up for this. Because it's not always what they write, it's what they don't write.
Man, journalists, at least in this beautiful, idealized world, were the fierce, independent folks challenging the establishment, holding the powerful to account. When in reality, they're literally just working for those people to sell products.
By the way, I'm watching the comment, and one of the guys says, fact checkers. And I'm like, you want to talk about, like, if you go to school and you're in high school and you literally have no skills, the guidance counselor at one point comes up to you and says, like, have you thought about becoming a fact checker? Like, I think that's what happens because these folks literally, when I left the White House, I had all these anecdotes. And at one point, Mike Pence had given this speech about how many people are out of work. And let's just say hypothetically, the number is like 1,000 people are out of work. And the Washington Post gave it 4 Pinocchios because it lacked the context that, well, 1,000 people were out of work. The population had grown, therefore. And I'm like, no. All he said was this is how many people are out of work. Yep. But they deemed it 100% false because it lacked the context. And I'm like, that's not how people talk.
That's how the game is played. My favorite is when Bernie Sanders and Trump both gave the exact same stat, something about inner city kids not having jobs, and PolitiFact said Bernie was mostly true and Trump was mostly false, because what do either of those statements mean? Mostly true, mostly false. The point was the exact same. Trump said, 51% are out of work. Bernie said the same thing. They said Trump was lying. Bernie wasn't.
Well, again, you've got to. That's how it works.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.